Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Kumusta na po kayo mga kababayan? Welcome po muli, na? Welcome po muli sa ating munting channel, Zayan Vlog TV, ano. So, today this video, i-share ko po sa inyo itong latest na kaganapan po sa China, kung saan ay sabay-sabay po natin ipanalangin na hanggang China lang po itong pangyayari na ito, wag na po mangyari muli sa buong mundo itong nangyayari, kaganapan sa China. Sa kasalukuyan po itong news po ito ngayong araw na ito, na ayon sa international news na ito ay more than 70% na po ang population ng Shanghai, China, ang capital ng China, ang infected po ng coronavirus. So sadya po talagang hindi gaano na ibabalita dahil may blackout media po ang ginawa ng China. So alam naman natin kung gaano makapangyari na China, kaya nagagawa nilang kontrolin ang pagbabalita nito. So panoorin po natin ito.
At least 70% of Shanghai's population infected with COVID-19, leading doctor. China's COVID campaign. Businessman says tragic, while expert says factories are a mess. Chinese-controlled media downplay COVID severity as WHO seeks realistic data. Chinese students in Germany rally again. Desolate scenes inside China's ghost towns, 65 million empty homes. Following China's abrupt U-turn on zero-COVID policy last month, the country has seen an increase in COVID cases. A leading doctor at one of Shanghai's top hospitals estimates that up to 70% of the city's population has been infected with COVID-19. As Today Online reported, Chen Erjan, vice president at Raijin Hospital and member of Shanghai's COVID-19 expert advisory panel, told the state-run media People's Daily, now the spread of the epidemic in Shanghai is very wide and it may have reached 70% of the population, which is 20 to 30 times more than in April and May. According to the South China Morning Post, Chen said that the volume of patients in the emergency unit of his hospital has reached 1,600 emergency admissions per day, with 80% of them having a COVID-related condition. There are now twice as many instances as there were before restrictions were loosened, and about half of them are vulnerable groups such as the elderly or immunocompromised people. He was quoted as saying, "More than 100 ambulances arrive at the hospital every day." In a video taken at the Zhongsheng Hospital in Shanghai, people are seen being placed on beds outside the entrance to the emergency room. After China eased most of its pandemic restrictions, it also decided to stop counting the number of daily COVID infections. Yet, the country's healthcare system is now under tremendous strain due to the increase in cases. Widespread infection among medical staff have worsened the problem. Late December last year, Zhejiang province bordering Shanghai said that the number of daily cases in the region have surpassed 1 million and is expected to peak at 2 million daily infections around New Year.
China's draconian zero-COVID policies have delayed medical treatment and caused many deaths across the country since the COVID-19 outbreak. A Taiwanese businessman told the Central News Agency, or CNA, one word to describe the COVID prevention campaign was tragic. Moreover, it's hard to find a person who isn't infected. According to this man, more than half of the people in the production line of some manufacturers have been infected. The Financial Times cited the boss of a Shandong-based printed circuit board factory. He said 20% came to work, while the rest called in sick with COVID. He was worried about shutting down the factory. According to the Taiwanese man, some bosses are even reluctant to make year-end bonus payments. The repeated closures because of the pandemic and the closure of Shanghai in the past 3 years have greatly decreased the business volume. This wave of epidemic is a new blow, making operation extremely difficult. He said that the current situation is worse than the previous lockdown. Previously, closed-loop system was a possible solution, but now there are no conditions to do so. The Wall Street Journal reported in December that the system had come to a halt. Therefore, factories are trying to cope with severe staffing shortages and struggling to keep their employees healthy. Cameron Johnson, a partner at Shanghai-based consulting firm Tidal Wave Solutions, said, quote, "Operationally, factories are a mess," end quote. Cameron heard from one supplier of plastics and other raw materials in the southern factory city of Dongguan, where COVID affects up to 85% of the workforce. The Taiwanese businessman believes that China's official relaxation of epidemic prevention was too sudden. Medical resources or public health education aren't available. The Chinese government, on the other hand, chose to relax during the winter and focus on nucleic testing when the virus was active. CNA shared the story of a worker working in a large manufacturing factory in Wujiang, Suzhou. He said almost all employees of the company were infected with the virus. Migrant workers were sent back to their hometowns in mid-December. The worker said this pandemic wave impacted the company operationally. Orders have long been slashed in the sluggish global economic climate. The worst situation has already happened, but the company would still encourage workers to return to work. In addition, the early return of Taiwanese businessmen and officials to Taiwan for the Lunar New Year reflects the negative impacts of the pandemic and poor economic conditions. According to the Taiwanese man, Taiwanese businessmen and executives have returned to Taiwan to prepare for the New Year these days. In the past, most of them would return to Taiwan on New Year's Eve, or the day before the New Year's Eve. It shows that the existing business volume does not require so many people to stay on the mainland. China-controlled media downplayed the severity of COVID infections on Tuesday, January 3rd, in the country as its scientists met with the World Health Organization, or WHO. The People's Daily, a mouthpiece of the Chinese Communist Party, on Tuesday cited Chinese experts, saying the virus was mild for most infected people. According to Reuters, the United Nations health body has invited top Chinese experts to give detailed information on the virus variant at a closed key meeting on Tuesday. In a previous meeting, it asked the Chinese regime to regularly share specific and real-time data on the COVID status as it evaluates the situation in the country to offer help. The agency asked Chinese officials to share more data on genetic sequencing, hospitalizations, intensive care unit admissions, deaths, and vaccinations. Before Tuesday's meeting, two WHO leading scientists said they wanted a more realistic picture of the COVID situation in China. However, some experts think the regime would not release such data and instead keep the information hidden. Alfred Wu, associate professor at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore, told Reuters, "I don't think China will be very sincere in disclosing information. They would rather just keep it to themselves, or they would say nothing happened, nothing is new. My own sense is that we could assume that there is nothing new. But the problem is China's transparency issue is always there. The Chinese regime only reported several deaths a day, while a UK-based health firm said the number of deaths from COVID is around 9,000 people a day. Due to a lack of information, multiple countries have imposed travel restrictions, requiring COVID tests on travelers from China. Chinese state-controlled media have condemned such a move, claiming such measures are discriminatory. The EU has reportedly signaled to the Chinese regime that they would offer free COVID-19 vaccines to help the country contain a widespread outbreak. The US made the same vaccine offer earlier, but the regime turned it down. A spokesperson for the White House National Security Council said, "The United States has offered China vaccines and other COVID-19 support. China has indicated publicly they appreciate the offer, but do not need the support. We continue to stand by our offer."
Life is slowly returning to normal in China amid a major zero-COVID aftershock, but not to all Chinese. On the second day of 2023, a group of Chinese students assembled at the Brandenburg Gate, Germany's capital Berlin. Under the theme, "Don't Lie and Support the Arrested Compatriots," they demonstrated for the Chinese who have remained under arrest since the White Paper movement last November. The White Paper protest triggered the end of the zero-COVID policy, with Beijing rushing to dismantle the system throughout the following month and skipping any exit plan. To the vastly unvaccinated Chinese population and the unprepared healthcare system, December 2022 became a tumultuous month of survival. But behind the chaos, Chinese students in Berlin knew remnants from the White Paper movement were still there. Officials in the mainland have not released people arrested during the protests, such as citizen reporter Zhang Jian, and many missing people remained in the dark. Demonstrator Xiao Xiang told Radio Free Asia that it is unreasonable for the Chinese government to arrest white paper protesters who only wanted to express their dissatisfaction with the zero-COVID policy. He said, as an international student in Germany, I will cooperate with political groups and branches of German political parties in our university to let more Chinese people know what happened in China. Joanna, one of the organizers, questioned the purpose for detaining citizens even now as the government has scrapped the policy, which she believes shows that they knew it was faulty. Rights Protection Network learned that in Beijing alone, at least 11 people were arrested during the White Paper Revolution, including Beijing news reporter Yong Lu, publishing house editor Xiao Xiyin, bar owner Gu Yu, artist Chen Junhui, and Caixin reporter Qin Zuyi.
Okay, so yan nga po mga kababayan, napanood natin yung news na yun patungkol sa kaganapan sa China. Uulitin ko po, sana po sabay-sabay po natin na ipanalangin na naway hanggang China lang po ang pangyayaring yan. Wag na po sana maulit pa yung nakaraang pangyayari kung saan ay talagang napakadaming tao po ang dumanas sa sobrang paghihirap. Ang daming nawalan ng trabaho, ang daming nagutuman ng husto dahil sa mga lockdown na nangyari. So sana po maging maingat ang ating gobyerno na huwag masyadong i-welcome ang mga Chinese na pumapasok dyan sa ating bansang Pilipinas. Dahil sadya po talaga na sobrang lala na po ang problema ng China patungkol sa COVID. Hindi nga lang masyadong ibabalita dahil sabi nga natin na ito nga blackout news ng China. Hindi nila gusto na ito ay malaman sa buong mundo. Kung kaya't swerte na rin tayo at may lumalabas na mga ganitong balita, may naglilik na mga video. So maging aware po tayo, maging aware po tayo mga kababayan.